There was a lot of talk coming into this offseason about Fred VanVleet signing an extension with the Toronto Raptors. However, it has not happened. And a lot of Raptors fans are questioning why Fred VanVleet hasn't been able to come to an agreement with Toronto to extend that contract. So I'm going to break down the real reason Fred VanVleet has not signed an extension just yet with the Toronto Raptors. Additionally, Nick Nurse spoke on OG's disgruntlement with his role in the offense. So it's an interesting quote, interesting interview he had. So I'll discuss what he said about OG Anunoby in this vid as well, and lots of other Raptors news. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here at the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And before we dive into it, we're so close to 24K subs. It'd help out big time if you guys could subscribe to the channel. If you've been watching the videos over the summer or however long you've been watching, you haven't hit the subscribe button, appreciate it big time if you could hit that button if you like the vids, but I appreciate you guys clicking on the video regardless. But the first thing we're talking about, the first thing we're discussing in this video here today is the real reason Fred VanVleet has not signed an extension with the Toronto Raptors. As I brought up in the intro, this is one of the bigger storylines coming into free agency this year because obviously the KD news ended up taking over everyone's eyes, and the possibility of acquiring a top 5 star in the league, obviously that's going to overshadow any deals for a guy that's already signed your roster, at least for this upcoming season. However, with the exception of maybe Boucher and Thaddeus Young being free agents, the extensions of Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. were huge topics. Now, Gary's his whole own situation, but I'm discussing Fred VanVleet in this vid, and yeah, there was reports coming out essentially the day of free agency. This one was from Bleacher Report back, right before free agency started, that Toronto and Fred VanVleet appear headed towards a contract extension that could approach 4 years and over $10 million per year. So that's what the sources were telling Bleacher Report. And this is a pretty reasonable contract on both sides. This is something that makes sense because the Toronto Raptors, obviously all-star point guard Fred VanVleet, had a heck of a start of a season last year before he ended up going down or suffering some injuries in the second half of the year, inevitably struggling in the playoffs because of those injuries and sitting out the last couple of games of the playoffs. Right, Fred VanVleet was playing the best basketball of his career, so obviously the Raptors want to bring him back. And I know Fred VanVleet's bet on yourself, but if you can get that big money, take the money if you're going to be close to maxed out anyway. So it made sense why that would be the case. Now, I've seen a couple of reasons which I don't necessarily agree with why this deal not necessarily has fallen through, because a deal could still happen before the deadline, but a couple of reasons why it didn't happen that I just don't really agree with. Now, the first reason I'm going to write off as just, I'm saying OGs to a bunch of these comments, essentially saying the Raptors don't want to bring him back. They want the 6'9" lineup. They want the big, long, athletic folks. They say Scotty can run the point guard. And while I am of the viewpoint, Scotty Barnes should be given more ball handling duties. He should be facilitating more of the offense. Let Fred VanVleet play that off-ball role, which he thrived in during our championship run in that year with Kyle Lowry. Right, that Fred VanVleet can certainly play the 2 and all that sort of stuff. But some people are saying, look at how bad Fred was in the playoffs. He was getting cooked by Tyrese Maxey. The Raptors just didn't want to pay him. They don't want to pay this guy. He's not as good as Jalen Brunson. He's not as good as any of these guys in the league. Why should we pay him? Now, firstly, that's just nonsense. It's wrong. Fred VanVleet was hurt. He's not an injury-prone player, right? He did deal with some injuries in the second half of last season, but struggled this game. When he was going, he was absolutely elite, right? And I know a lot of people bring up the defensive side of things, the Raptor-style defense. Fred VanVleet is, in my opinion, if not all NBA, all defensive team, all NBA defense, whatever you want to call that team, if not that level caliber player, just a tier below. We saw what he's done over the course of playoff runs with the Toronto Raptors. He is an absolutely elite defender. We got recency bias given to the fact he was getting cooked by Tyrese Maxey because he was hurt. So that's, people are bringing up the defensive end. And the Toronto Raptors need shooting. Fred VanVleet is arguably our best shooter on the roster, right? So I don't know why it would make sense when you consider volume and the ability to shoot off the dribble and all that sort of stuff. I know OG's a good set shooter. Siakam's improving. Precious was on fire the second half of the year, right? Gary Trent Jr. can knock him down. But Fred VanVleet, just the level of difficulty of the shots he takes, right? He's an elite shooter. We need more shootings to surround Pascal and Scotty Barnes. So play style wise, it makes zero sense to give up on Fred VanVleet. He's not washed. He's not trash. He's not anything to this. The Toronto Raptors are not thinking about trading or letting Fred VanVleet walk because he's a bad player or anything like that. And the second reason is all the KD drama, right? We're on the quest for Kevin Durant. The Toronto Raptors don't want to keep a trade asset out of the KD sort of trade packages and trade talks. So we're on that hunt and we don't want to give up Scotty Barnes. And while I see the logic there because obviously the extension talks stopped being reported on when all the Kevin Durant drama came out, I don't think Fred VanVleet would be in any KD packages. It just hasn't been talked about by any of the reports. It would make sense to have Fred VanVleet on your team, an all-star point guard that obviously seems like to have more value to our own team. Like Kyle Lowry was always the same way. He never had that much trade value on the open market. However, he has so much value to the Raptors team. Just as with his leadership, the positionalist, just the fact that he embraces the Raptors culture. Fred VanVleet has all those things. I don't think he's going to be involved in a Kevin Durant package. So, bringing up those 2 points. Why hasn't Fred VanVleet been signed? Why haven't we brought him back? Why haven't they been able to come to an agreement? Because I'm of the belief the Toronto Raptors would certainly give him this $110 million contract, which is, in fact, the maximum amount of money that they could agree on in terms of an extension. Why hasn't it happened? And I think the real reason that this hasn't occurred is because Fred VanVleet knows he'll be able to get more money in actual free agency, likely from the Raptors, right? This is not him expecting to leave, trying to play his cards, see if the Knicks or the Kings or something like we thought a couple years ago would give him an absolute bag. No. He can get more money because how the rule works, since he's been extended by the Raptors before, he's only eligible in an extension for a 20% raise. That puts him, he's currently making roughly low 20s, the low to mid 20s per year annually. So that can only go up 20% for his next extension. So that's where you get the $110 million mark, right? 27 to 30 million over the course of a contract. So Fred VanVleet is capped out at that level. We saw this happen with Zach LaVine down there in Chicago. He did not sign an extension with the Chicago Bulls because he knew he'd be able to sign a bigger contract come, free agency, come extension time and all that sort of stuff. So that's likely what's going to happen with Fred VanVleet. He knows he's getting the bag. He saw Jalen Brunson get similar amount of money that he could potentially make, and Fred VanVleet knows he's better than Jalen Brunson. I know it's been controversial when I brought that up on videos and stuff, but Fred VanVleet's an all-star and NBA champion, is much more established than Jalen Brunson. He's on a second contract already. He's more proven. Fred VanVleet can earn more money on the open market than a Jalen Brunson. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Fred knows he can get more money. He's probably going to wait it off and bet on himself this season, sure that he has another solid year, and go for that contract next season. So it's not the Raptors are disgruntled about him. It's not that Fred's mad about coming back to Toronto and all that nonsense. It's not the KD stuff. It doesn't make financial sense for Fred VanVleet to sign that contract right now. But let me know. Let me know if you agree with that reason why Fred VanVleet. It's the most logical one. It's the most one I've seen. So that's what we're talking about. We're 8 minutes into this. We got to get into our next topic. And the next one is that OG wants a bigger role in the offense. Now, obviously, this was reported in terms of a potential trade rumor, a trade scenario for OG Anunoby at the start of the summer, which I wrote off as kind of nonsense. OG didn't strike me as the most, trade request, trade demand guy. However, doesn't seem like the reports just were pulled out of thin air because it said league executives back in the day like a month ago before the NBA draft, saw OG Anunoby not happy with this role and thought he could be up for trade. Now, while this is the case, that he is not happy with this role, it wasn't complete smoke. They were sort of speculating on the sort of trade scenario, trade aspect of it all. But Nick Nurse actually addressed these comments because I kind of wrote them off. I forgot about them, honestly, at this point with how much news and stuff has happened over the course of the summer. But Nick Nurse had some comments on SiriusXM NBA radio about OG's disgruntlement and how they're going to sort of go about fixing it coming into next season. So, direct quote, there's an interesting sort of clip he had going on there. Can't play it because copyright and all that sort of stuff, but he wants to be more a part of the offense. So I certainly can help him with that. Nick Nurse sort of went on to say about different things that they could end up doing. And then, how Nick Nurse's end of the bargain can help OG get better. And then he went on to say but it's kind of a working relationship that he's got to go out and take some of that. So Nick Nurse, to sort of summarize the comments, that's just a quick quote that they had summarizing the sort of video. It's definitely an interesting clip. It's going around Reddit and Twitter, so you can peep that. But essentially, to summarize what was brought up, it's OG wants to be able to facilitate more of the offense, wants to have the ball in his hands a bit more, which honestly makes sense because you consider OG, before he dealt with his injuries over the course of last season, was looking really good in ISOs and fadeaways and had a bunch of different moves in his bag the first 2 months of the year, especially before Pascal came back, and was pretty solid, right? Wasn't by like a LeBron James, a prime Carmelo efficiency, you know, in the mid post area getting buckets, but he definitely wasn't bad. However, especially when he came back from injuries as the season went along, those efficiency numbers got to a point where OG Anunoby was one of the worst players in the NBA in terms of efficiency and ISO scoring across the league. So he wasn't able to sort of really put that together, but we are seeing improvements from OG on that front, especially when compared to his rookie season where he didn't have a handle, he didn't have that finish ability, and regardless of ISO or not, this year I definitely trust OG Anunoby with making straight line drives and especially finishing at the rim when the lanes are there. So OG wants to have more of those opportunities. It makes sense why Nick Nurse didn't give him full reign on that front last season and, you know, run a bunch of plays for him, given the numbers weren't that reflective as it's a strong opportunity, a strong play for the Raptors. But, you know, he continues to work on his game. I don't mind the Raptors giving him more looks to improve the development. And in the playoffs, come playoff time, Pascal Siakam's, I saw a stat about his isolations ended up going up tremendously, not in terms of efficiency, just the vast number, the sheer number of isolations he had to run went up crazy in the playoffs, and he did a good job with it. But having a couple more guys that can create off the dribble, I don't mind giving OG, give him some time to develop that over the regular season. If he gets the efficiency up, makes sense for the Raptors. I see where OG's coming from. I see why Nick Nurse is willing to give him more opportunities in that front. But as he brought up the second half of his sort of quote, he sort of said that OG has to go out there and take some of those. Right, and as we know, with Precious Achiuwa, with anyone in the Toronto Raptors system, right, they have free reign to dribble the ball up the court, shoot the shots. There's a green light. It's a free-flowing offense, right? There's no we're not the Miami Heat, like what they did to Precious. I always think about use that analogy as an example, but restricting what players can do. And OG just sort of has to do it because there is times where you just kind of, it's like the Andrew Wiggins effect when he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves. On offense, you just kind of forget he's out there. He's chilling in the corner, doesn't look to actively get his shots. He catches it, doesn't really look to attack or anything, swings the ball a little bit too much. So OG's got to take some more, and Nick Nurse has got to draw some more plays up. And Nick Nurse sort of brought up, also, he's not mad at the Raptors or anything like that, but he just wants a elevated role in the offense, which makes sense, you know, wants to shift everything up. He's not demanding a trade or anything like that. Nick Nurse says it's been good communication, and he also praised OG Anunoby for improving his game and taking the next steps, which is huge. So it's going to be interesting because if OG can get back to where he was at the first couple months of last year, it could be really, really interesting. But the next topic we're discussing in this video is the Raptors hire new coach from U of T. So the Toronto Raptors, their new G League head coach, has been brought up, and it's a U of T alumni representing the Canadians out there. But Eric Cowrie, I believe that's how you pronounce it, named new Raptors 905 head coach. Apologize if I'm butchering that pronunciation. I couldn't find anywhere online to properly find the pronunciation. But Eric, he's a Toronto native that graduated from U of T with a Bachelor of Applied Sciences in Aerospace Engineering and a Master of Applied Sciences in Experimental Fluid Dynamics. So we're going to be getting this guy increasing the vertical with the aerospace engineering degree of all of our players by at least 5 inches. That's one thing that's coming in the development system. Obviously, that's jokes. But with any of these engineering degrees, right, I did computer science. It's all numeric, lots of numbers, lots of analytics, lots of data you're dealing with. So if there's one thing we know this guy can do coming in, it's, apply some numbers to some basketball, take some insights out there, and probably build his own models and get his stuff going. So it's a pretty cool hire. It's cool that they pick someone up from U of T, from University of Toronto. But I'm interested to see, because the 905 guys obviously want to get some different voices, different views. Eric's been with the Toronto Raptors, I believe, since 2012. The article I mentioned, and he's worked his way up to becoming head coach of the 905. So congratulations, huge praise. I always rep the engineers, the analytics folks. Like to see them getting the jobs, and probably bring some new insights to the Raptors development squad for the 905. But Final thing we're discussing is a former Raptor absolutely roasting LeBron James. Now this one we do have the clip ready to show, and everyone knows Jonas Valanciunas, fan favorite for the Toronto Raptors, given his memes, given the big lumbering centers, Serge Ibaka, Jonas Valanciunas, Gasol, right? All the, when we have some big men in Toronto, Bismack Biyombo, right? The big centers just always get love from Toronto fans. And, it's, we love seeing them. We love repping the squad. And obviously, Jonas Valanciunas had some brutal battles with LeBron James in the playoffs. Fortunately, especially the second two series, LeBron did get the best of us. However, Jonas, he's still got some fight, whether it's on the court or whatever. He's still got some bad blood with LeBron James, and this is he was asked to do a little charade of LeBron in this video, and I'll just play the clip.
Nu tas kaip tas.
Čia gali būti bet kas.
Ne, tas kur tas.
Jonas Valanciunas, always out here rocking out for Raptors. Is holding up. LeBron James not on Toronto. LeBron James, I know it's just a roast of him in general, but shout out to JV, man. I miss that guy. I know he can't guard the pick and roll defense, but he was a culture dude. Love to see him back on the squad. Anyways, folks, also, I said this at the end of the last video. We got to get out of the LeBronto zone, right? We're at 23K subs. We need to get to that 24. No more repping that 2-3 for LeBron in the subs. But anyways, enough of me rambling. You guys are the best to make it this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. I'm signing out. Cheers.